Welcome back, everyone. Now, in this video, I'm going to go ahead and start unwrapping our objects, right? So I'm going to start with the boards. So I select the black board and I select the bulletin board and I isolate these objects. Now I'm going to have to move this to this side a little bit. Now, how I'll do this is that I'll unwrap them together. I want them to share the same UV workspace because when I'm texturing them, they're going to have the same material. Now, I click on my UV editing workspace, or I just come to the top left corner, click and drag. Now I change this editor to UV editor. Now right away I will select my two objects and tab into edit mode, and I'm going to start with unwrapping the main board itself. That's the faces here. So I'm going to select this face and select that face, and I hit U to unwrap and I project from view. Okay, now I come to my UV editing workspace and I click on UV up here and I pack islands. Okay, now I'm going to make sure the rotation is unchecked because I don't need the rotation here, and I'm going to set my margin to 0.5 so that at least I get a tiny gap between the two islands here. Now I'm going to pack, and just like that, it's done. Okay, so now I'll hide this, and for these wooden pieces, easily I'm going to use Smart UV Project. So I select all of them and I hit U and I just click on Smart UV Project and I unwrap. Now for these, I make sure that my island margin is set to 0.01 just so that there's a tiny gap between the islands that we have here. And just like that, we finish unwrapping our two boards. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to create two materials for this board. One is going to be for the main board itself and the other is going to be for the wooden border here. So I click on my board and I come to my material editor and I press the plus button twice. Now for the first material, I click on new and I call it board underscore wood. Now for the second one, I click on new and I call it board underscore black. Now these materials have been applied to this board alone. So to copy them to the other, I just select the one I want to copy to and select the one I want to copy from, and I hit Ctrl L and I link materials. Now they are being applied to the two objects. Now to apply these materials to their respective meshes, I tab into edit mode. And now for the main board itself, I know that I want this to have the board underscore black material because this is going to be the black material. So I make sure board underscore black is selected and I click on assign. Now I hit Ctrl I to invert the selection and I click on board underscore wood and I assign. I'm going to repeat the process here. I tab into edit mode, select the main board, I click on board underscore black and I assign, and I hit Ctrl I and I click on board underscore wood and I assign. That's all for the board, guys. The next objects I want to unwrap are the bookshelf, the door, and the window. So I've selected three of them and I press forward slash twice. Now I have them here. So I'm gonna move, just create space so I can work better. Now starting with the bookshelf, I select it and I tab into edit mode. Now I hit A to select everything, but I unselect the handles. So I hit L and I just check deselect here. I hit L and I also check deselect here. Good. Now easily I'm gonna Smart UV project. So I click on U. I'm going to click on Smart UV project. I'm going to unwrap, as easy as that. I'm going to repeat the same process for the window and for the door. So I select the window, I tab into edit mode, I select all, I hit U, I hit Smart UV project, and for the door I do the same thing. I select the door, I select the frame here, and I select this wooden piece. I make sure to leave the handle unselected and I hit U and I hit Smart UV project and I unwrap. Now this looks good, but for the door, you see I want the front of the door here. That's this group of faces that we have here to have a higher amount of resolution, right? So what I do is that I select them, and in my UV workspace I just select the corresponding UV and I scale this up by 2, and I'm also going to have to rotate this just so it fits perfectly, and I scale it on the x-axis by a value of -1. Now this looks fine, so I'm just going to place it nicely here. Now the next thing to do is that I select the parts of the door that I've unwrapped and select the parts of the window that I've unwrapped, and I'm going to pack them together because they're going to share the same material. So to do that, I come to my UV space and I select all my UV islands here and I click on UV and pack islands. Now I'm going to pack. So this is the result that I have here. You see that for my door, the island is bigger than the others. So I like it like this. Now for the handles, I'm just going to select the bookshelf and select the door and I tab into edit mode. And since the other parts have been selected, I just hit Ctrl I to invert the selection. Now only the handles have been selected. For these, I'm also going to hit U and use Smart UV project. So this is the result I get. Now that's all for the unwrapping of the bookshelf, the door, and the window. The next thing to do is to add materials. So for the door, I'm going to need 3 materials because the main door itself is going to have a material, possibly wood. Now you see there's a border here. This is usually a black plastic or a metal, right? And now the handle has its own different material. So I'm going to create 3 materials for the door. 1, 2, 3. Now for the first one, I'm going to call it door underscore base. And for the second one, I'm going to call it door underscore plastic. Now for the third one, I'm going to call it door underscore metal. So the base is going to be for the main door itself here. Now for the plastic, I'm going to give this material a black plastic. That's the border here. And for the metal, it's going to be the handle, okay? So to do that, I select my metal by hitting L while hovering over it. And I select the door metal material here and I assign it. Now I can hide this. Now for the frame here, I hover over it and hit L and click on my door plastic and I assign and I hide it. Now every other part here is going to be the door base. So that should be assigned already because it was the first material I created. But should in case it isn't, all you have to do is select the door base, just highlight it and assign it. Now for the window, like I said, it's going to share the same material with the door. So I'm just going to click on this drop down here and select my door underscore base. Now for the bookshelf, I'm going to need 2 materials. So I click on the plus icon twice. And for the first material, I can add a new material and call it bookshelf underscore wood. Now for the second material, I'm going to use the same metallic material I used here. So now I will quickly do the floor and the ceiling together. So I select the ceiling and I select the floor and I hit forward slash twice. Now I have these 2 objects. I'm going to have to move one just slightly here. Now for the floor, I don't have to texture this in a Substance Painter because I can get materials in Unreal Engine. So I just tab into edit mode and I select all. It feels like it's already unwrapped, but I just do it again most times. So I just hit U and unwrap, as easy as that. Now for the ceiling, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to unwrap these large faces together. So I select all of them like that and I hit U and I hit unwrap. Okay, now I hide them. Now for the wooden pieces here, I select them, I hit U and I use Smart UV project and I unwrap. The next thing I'll do is to pack the elements together. So I unhide and I come to my UV editing workspace. I select everything and I click on UV and pack islands and I just pack. Now for the material, I can add the new material and I call this ceiling and I hide this. Now for this, I can add the new material and I call this floor, as easy as that. Now the next materials I want to unwrap are the walls. So I go ahead and select 3 walls that we have here and I hit forward slash 3 times. I'm going to move it like I always do. Now for the walls, we are not going to be using Smart UV project this time around. We're going to be marking seams. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Now I will start with the plain wall. So I just select it and I tab into edit mode. Now to unwrap these objects, I'm going to mark seams, okay? Because my object is going to cut along the seams when I unwrap it. So how I'll do that is that for the wall itself, this looks plain already, right? It's just a single plane, so I really don't need to do anything here. I'm just gonna hide this. And for the one at the back too, I really don't need to do anything here. It's just a flat plane. In fact, I don't even need these edges, the 2 edges we have here. So I can just hit X and limited dissolve. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the one we have here in front. I just hit X and limited dissolve. Now I go ahead and hide the 2 of them. But for these pieces, you see, I can just click on an edge here, maybe at this point, and click on another one at this point, and I use Ctrl E and I mark seam. Okay, now you see, as soon as I unwrap this object, it's going to cut nicely along the seams. So that's the result I'm going for. Now I just unhide my faces and now I select all and I hit U and I unwrap this. So this is unwrapped nicely, guys. We are really just done with this. Now I will go ahead and focus on the wall with the door. Now to unwrap this, it's going to be pretty much the same thing, but for these, you see that I'll have to mark seams along these edges we have here at the door. So I'll just go ahead and select the 3 edges and I select the ones behind as well. Okay, and I hit Ctrl E, mark seam. Okay, now first of all, let me isolate this object. Now for this, you see that I really still don't need these faces. I'm just going to hit X and dissolve the edges, right? And for these too, I'm going to hit X and dissolve the edges. Now as easy as that, you see, for these I can just select all, or hit U and I unwrap and it unwraps nicely. Okay, for the other part, I can do the same thing I did. I just select the edges that are here and I hit Ctrl E and mark seam. So now for this object, think of this as a piece of paper that you need to unfold to lay it flat on the ground, right? So to do that, you have to cut it along some certain edges here. So now it's left for you to figure out how to cut this object to lay it flat on the ground. But you see, if I select this edge and I select that edge, this edge and this edge, now imagine that I cut these objects along these edges, you'd realize that I'll be able to lay it flat on the ground. So let's see what happens now. I hit Ctrl E, I mark seam, and now I select the object and unwrap it. You see how it unwrapped nicely, right? So I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other one that we have here. I select this edge, I select these edges, and I hit Ctrl E, and I hit mark seam. Now I select all U, unwrap, and it unwraps nicely. Okay, so in terms of my seams, everything is okay. Now before I unwrap these objects together, I'm gonna delete these edges because I really don't need them. So I just X and dissolve edges. Now I select everything, I hit U and unwrap angle base. Now my objects are unwrapped nicely. Now the next object I'll focus on is the wall with window because this is the most complex. To unwrap this, we are going to do the same thing we did for the other objects. I want you to pause this video and think of this object, like I said, as a piece of paper, and I ask you to lay this object flat on the ground. Along what edges will you cut these objects to lay them flat on the ground? Just pause the video, think of it, and you can come back. Okay, now this is how I'm going to unwrap this object. You see the faces at the back here are flat. Okay, so to do that, I just select this group of edges and I Ctrl E to mark seam. Now you see that I have cut this group of faces. Now they are flat on the ground. Okay, so I'm just going to hide the faces temporarily. Now I'm left with these. Okay, I think I can hide this top part and the bottom part for now. I will focus on that later, and I can also delete these edges here. So I just X and dissolve edges. Good. Now let's focus on this. I'm done with the faces at the back. Now for these, if I cut this object along this edge and along that edge, I think I need to hide my modifier so I'll be able to see this clearly. So I'll just temporarily hide the two of them. Now if I select this edge and select that edge, and I do the same thing here, I select this edge and I select that edge and I hit Ctrl E and I mark seam, you see that I've been able to cut this object and lay it on the flat surface. Okay, now I'm going to temporarily hide this face because I'm done with this. Now how about this part here? I do the same thing. I just cut along these edges. These are the edges in edit mode, so you see it clearly, and I hit Ctrl E and I mark seam. Now you see that this is also his own object on the flat surface. So marking seams doesn't have to be difficult, guys. Now the next object I want to focus on is obviously the top part and the bottom part. So I just Shift H to hide every other object, and for these I can just select a group of edges here and do the same thing for the base. And I hit Ctrl E and I mark seam, and I'm going to get rid of these edges that I don't really need. These, and I X dissolve edges. Now I unhide all my objects. Now I'm good to unwrap this object. So I hit U and unwrap angle based. Now you see that my objects are unwrapped nicely. What you see here is this top and bottom part that we have here. That's this and this. Okay, so for this we can actually add more loop cuts. Okay, if you want to cut this nicely, but it's up to you. If you want to do it, please go ahead. But as for me, I'm going to leave it because this is a tiny detail in my scene and it's not going to make any much difference. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to unhide all my walls, and for the walls now I'm going to select all of them together and make sure everything is unhidden. I'm going to pack all of them as one. So I just hit A in my UV workspace, click on UV and click on pack island, and I pack. Now for the materials, I'm just going to create a new material. So I click on the plus icon, click on new and call it walls. Okay, and now I can select the other two walls, select the walls that I created the materials on, click on Ctrl L and link materials. That's all for the walls, guys. This is me from the future, guys. Now I know that I said concerning this object, our UV here is not going to make much difference because this is a tiny object. But then I decided that I still want to make this look a whole lot better than it looks right now, okay? So what I'll do is that I'll select the corresponding mesh here by hovering over it and hitting L. Select the one at the base. Now I can Shift H to isolate every other object. Now all I have to do is add seams along these edges here. So I select all the edges like that and I hit Ctrl E and I mark seam. Now I select all, I click on U and I unwrap, okay? Now I unhide the remaining part of the door and I make sure all the doors are selected. Now I tab back into edit mode. I make sure I select everything, and in my UV workspace too, I highlight everything. UV average island scale, UV pack islands, and I pack. That's all, guys. It looks better now. Now the next objects I want to unwrap are the chair, the desk, and the teacher's desk. So I'm going to select the three of them and I hit forward slash twice. Now these are my objects, so I'm going to space them out. Now looking at these objects, the easiest to unwrap is the teacher's desk, right? So for this, I believe Smart TV project will give us a good result. So I just type into edit mode, I hit A and I unwrap and I click on Smart TV project. Now I unwrap this object and yes, the result is not that bad. But you see, the problem we have here is that I have about just 4 islands, right? And that's because I believe we haven't applied our modifiers. So to apply the modifiers, I just click on my modifier tab and I apply the solidify modifier for now. So I just apply just the solidify, okay? Now I tab back into edit mode and I hit U and Smart TV project. now we see we have a different result, and this result is good. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the table now, and for the table I'm going to mark a lot of seams here, right? So I'm going to start with the tabletop. So I select the tabletop and I hit Shift H to hide the other parts of the table. Now for the table, I can select this group of edges here and this group of edges here as well. And I hit Ctrl E and I click on Mark Seam, okay? And now I select a single edge here and I hit on Ctrl E and I mark seam. Now when I unwrap this object, unwrap angle base, I see that this is the result I get, okay? And this result is good. So I'm going to unhide my objects. I'm going to hide the tabletop. And now I'm going to focus on the metallic legs here. So I select all the legs and I hit Shift H to unhide every other part. And for these, I'm also going to mark seams to unwrap, okay? So to do that, I'm just going to select an edge here, come to this part, also select an edge here. And for these, I can just select an edge here, there, and then for the last one as well. And I hit Ctrl E to mark seam and I select all of them and U unwrap angle base. Now we have this result and this is not bad at all. Okay, so the next thing to unwrap are the legs. Now the legs are really tiny objects. There's really no point spending much time on these ones, so I'm just going to hit U and Smart UV project. Now I unwrap this. Now for the main locker itself, I believe that for this object, Smart UV project will also give us a good result. So let's try it out first. If it doesn't give us a good result, then we'll go ahead and mark seams. So I'll just click on U and click on Smart UV project and unwrap. Now the result here is really not bad at all. So we're going to work with these, right? Now moving to the chair, I select it and I tab into edit mode. I'm going to focus on the wooden part of the chair. So I select the two of them and Shift H to hide every other part. I'm going to unwrap it the same way I unwrapped the tabletop. I select this edge, select that edge. I'm going to select these two edges as well, and I'm going to select an edge here that is also going to cut because at the moment it is looped. I need it to cut. Okay, now for these as well, I'm going to maybe select an edge here, and since this is longer, I can select another one maybe here, and I hit Ctrl E and mark seam. Now I select all my objects, I hit U and I unwrap angle base. Now the result here is not bad at all. Okay, now I unhide every other part of the mesh and I hide the tabletop. For the legs, I'm still going to select all of them and use Smart UV project. So I just hit U, Smart UV project and unwrap. I'll hide the legs. Now for this part, I'm also going to select an edge that goes around and mark seam and unwrap. So I select this edge and I select this edge here and I hit Ctrl E and I mark seam. Now I select the whole object, I hit U and I unwrap. Now I'm going to unhide my object. For the materials, I'm going to need three, okay? The desk has a wooden part, the desk has a metallic part, and the foot is made of plastic, right? So I'm going to select the table and I'm going to add three new materials. For the first one, I'm going to call it desk underscore wood. For the second one, I'm going to call it desk underscore metal. Now for the last one, I'm going to call it desk underscore plastic. So I'm going to copy the materials to the chair. So I'll select the chair, select the desk, hit Ctrl L and link materials. Now the teacher's desk is just going to need one of the materials, and that's the desk underscore. Oh, I haven't done this. I select this, I select that, Ctrl L, link materials. Okay, now that works. Now for this, I'm just going to use the desk underscore wood material for the teacher's desk. I'm just going to click on this drop down, select desk underscore wood. That's all. Now it's time to pack these UVs as one. So I select my three objects and I tab into edit mode. Now for the desk underscore wood, first of all, I'm going to select the object that I'm going to assign the desk underscore wood materials to. Okay, so that's going to be this particular object here, this one, and all of this one. Okay, so I click on my desk underscore wood and I click on assign. Now I come to my UV editing workspace and I click on UV and I pack the islands. Good. Now this looks good. Okay, so I hide these objects. Now for the plastic part, I'm going to select just the foot. So I'm going to select each and every one of them. I'm going to click on desk underscore plastic and I'm going to assign. And in my UV editing workspace, I select all of them. I click on U and I pack islands as well. Now I hide them. Now the parts left are going to be the metallic part. So I hit A to select everything. I click on my desk underscore metal and I assign it. Now in my UV editing workspace, I click on everything. I click on UV and pack islands. This is the result we have, guys. So we are good to go now. One thing that I've done is that I've created a folder on my desktop and I call it classroom project. And inside this folder, you see I have two subfolders. One is called SP and one is called UE. Now I'm going to export my meshes twice. For the ones I will take to Substance Substance Painter, I'm going to export them to the folder SP. And for the ones that will take to Unreal Engine, I'm going to export them to the folder UE. My objects are fully unwrapped now, and I've given them material slots, right? So the next thing I want to do is to export these objects to Substance Painter so that I can texture them, right? And before I export to Substance Painter, one thing that you should always take note of is your face orientation, okay? So if you click on your overlays and check face orientation, if you see that your faces are red, that means the faces are flipped, right? So you see that I have some red faces here. For example, in my door, I have a red face here. That means the face is flipped, it is inverted, okay? This is going to cause you a lot of problems when you export it to other softwares. Now to fix that, I just tab into edit mode and I hit Shift N. Shift N is going to recalculate the normals, and that fixes the issue we have here. You see, we have another one here for my windows. So I just tab into edit mode, I hit Shift N, and I'm going to recalculate the normals. Okay, now I think we are good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to start with exporting my walls. So I select the 3 walls that I have here, and I make sure that there's a tiny gap between the walls. This might be too much. Okay, so I can reduce the gap a little bit. Yeah, something like this is okay. So I select 3 of them. I click on File and export as FBX. Okay, now yeah, I already have an export here, but don't worry, it's the same thing. In your case, this folder is going to be empty. Okay, so all you have to do is to call your objects walls, that's your FBX file, right? And make sure limit to selected objects is checked, okay, so that you're only exporting the objects that have been selected at the moment. So right now I'm only exporting 3 objects, and I just click on export FBX. Now I hide this. Now I'm going to export my boards. So I select the bulletin board and the blackboard, and I click on File, Export, and Export as FBX. Now I'm going to call this boards. Okay, make sure limit to selected objects is checked, and click on Export. Now I hide this. Now you see I have some red faces here as well. So I select the 2 of them, tab into edit mode, I unhide them, and I hit Shift N. Now that fixes it. Now I select my chair, select my desk, and select my teacher's desk, and I File, Export as FBX. I'm going to call this desk underscore chair. Okay, and I export. Now for my floor, I'm not going to texture it in Substance Painter. I'm going to use a Unreal Engine texture from Fab. So I just hide this one. Now for the ceiling, I'm going to reset the location. I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis by minus 90 degrees. Okay, and I see that yeah, this also needs to be flipped. Okay, the face. So I tab into edit mode, I hit Shift N, and I fix the normals, right? Now I move it up a bit, and I click on File, Export, FBX. I call this ceiling, and I export. Now I hide this. Now for these 3 objects, just drag them down a bit. You can just make sure they're at the ground level by changing the Z location to 0. Yeah, so I'm going to select all 3 of them and click on File, Export, and export as FBX. So for this, I'm going to call it door underscore window, and I'm going to export. So we are done with Blender for now, guys. In the next few videos, we're going to be texturing these objects in Substance Painter. So see you in the next video, guys.